So we are setting up our poster for assignment 6. And so far we have two components. We have background pixels that are white, 16 by 20 at 350 pixels per inch. Then I did a copy. I'll just do it from the beginning. I make a duplicate of that background, and then I fill that with gray. So I say edit fill with 50% gray, normal mode 100%. Fills the entire background. I don't want the entire background filled. I want to have a background and then a border. And I want that border to be white. So if I do Command T, I can now shrink the gray into the layout of the poster. And if I hold down Option, it will shrink it towards the middle. And that reveals my background for my poster and my border. Now, some posters would have a background like this, where it has more space on the bottom, and then you might actually have type on the bottom. You'll see that with a lot of movie posters. You even see it with album covers, book jackets. Or you might have it where the border is a slightly different shape, right? It's a little off from the cut edge. So you can play with that, but for now I'm just going to do a default border where if you notice, this is what I was doing at the end of the last video, if I shrink the exact proportions of 16 by 20, when I hold down Option, it locks the proportions and just grows it towards the middle. But you notice how the top and bottom are now thicker than the sides? And I don't want the top and bottom to be thicker than the sides. So I'm going to hold down Option and Shift, and then I tug out the tops and bottoms to match. But that's a nice kind of default border. You can make it skinny, you can make it thicker. This is just to get us started. Now I know what's called my picture plane, and I know my border. And now I get to go to assignment 5 and drag on the PNG, the same one you uploaded to Canvas, of my most finished spot illustration. And if it's not finished, it doesn't need to be. You just need the shape of it, right? So now this comes in as a smart object, but I need to place it. And I can have a lot of fun with placing it. I can even let it break the border. So for instance, I can tilt it and have that plane come off of the edge and have the shadow come off of the edge and then grow it from there so that it has a little bit more impact. I can use my arrow keys to kind of nudge it where I want. And maybe that's where I want it to be, right? Especially if I'm going for like an old movie poster approach. So I'm really making the spot illustration really big within the frame. Now, if I'm going to do a text blocking with that, I don't have a whole lot of space to text block. So what I'm going to do is use my brush, and I'm just going to use white. Actually, I'll use a different color. I'll use kind of this orangish color. This orangey red. Right. And now on a new layer, I'm going to lock the others. Always good to lock them. I am going to do my first option of text blocking. So this is option 1, text blocking. Then I'm going to make some duplicates of that. Oh, I hit duplicate before I finish the type. So option 1. Text blocking. Click off of it so that that type is set, and then I can make duplicates because I'm going to have several options. But option 1, let's see. I know I want it to say public menace, so maybe I do it like this. A block there and a block here. And I'm on a new layer, so I can go right over the top of my illustration if I want to. Right? And I'm breaking the border at the top. Come on. There we go. And maybe I break the border on the sides a little bit. Let me grow this, tilt it. This is why I like digital sketching, is I can try these variations quickly, but you can also just sketch it by hand. So let's see, let's turn this all the way around. Now it's called text blocking, not because I'm drawing blocks, though that is a nice way to remember it. Like these are the blocks that I'm then going to chisel the type out of, like it's a sculpture. But it's called blocking because in the theater, on a stage, when you give stage directions, you are telling the different actors on the stage where to be for certain moments of dialogue, when they get their focal point, right? And so blocking is how you arrange things in a composition to have the most effect. So this is where we put the type. Not what the type looks like, but the space it takes up so it has the most effect on the eye. Now, because we're a Western culture, if everything is blank, I'm going to show you what the eye does. And I'll actually paint it for you. This is called default eye movement. It's like a river that we want to put images in the way of. I'll make it bright pink. So default eye movement starts in the middle. If we're just looking at a blank piece of paper, this format starts in the middle. If it doesn't see anything in the middle, it goes immediately up to the upper left-hand corner. And then what does the eye do if it doesn't just leave entirely? If it has reason to look at it, it starts scanning it left to right, top to bottom, and our eye always leaves it off of the bottom right edge. It's actually hard for your eye to leave an image out the left. It feels uncomfortable to Western cultures because of the way we read. So now we put a border in there. That doesn't do anything to really help, right? But we put an image in there, and this gives us something to look at. So is there something in the center? Actually, intentionally, there's nothing in the center. But the closest lines to the center are going to lead my eye up to this portion, right? That's what I'm hoping for it to do. So I want them to see my illustration first, but that leads their eye up in design that's called leading lines to the beginning of my text, right? And then my text is going to be tilted this way so that the eye follows it and then gets back around to here and then gets carried into here, and then the whole design loops it back around so it keeps engaging you. So that's one option, right? So let's kind of figure out how that might work. Turn off the default eye movement. Maybe make this a little bit bigger, because scale is a big way to play with focal points in design. All right, so maybe like this. Okay, now how can I divide it up? Again, we're not designing the type, we're just designing the placement for it, the blocking of it. So public, so P, let's change the color. P-U-B-L-I-C, right? These are like the blocks, and I'm chiseling them out. I'm just going to use a pretty blocky, modern typeface, no serifs, no decoration. And I'm going to chisel out the forms so that my kerning is really tight. Because the most common mistake in type design is to not pay attention to the space between the letters. That is what's called the kerning. Some letters demand more space than others, like the C demands a lot more space. But you see how that's pretty readable? Public. And then for menace, I divide it this way. Going a little bit too much of an angle. M. Let's do M at an angle. E, N, A. I think I made the M too big. M, A, N, A, C, E. All right, so let's cut them out. E takes up a ton of space in kerning. The way I was taught it in type design is you think of each letter being dunked into a glass of water. And the amount of water that the letter displaces, that's the amount of negative space around the letter. Your goal is to line up all the letters in glasses of water and have the level of the water be the same for all of them. But that means the amount of water is different depending on how big the letter is. So the smaller the letter, the more space. Like an I versus an E. And because I'm sketching it digitally, I can immediately play with that. All right, then the N. And it's okay if it overlaps your spot illustration. It's okay if it runs behind your spot illustration. And the A. Then the C. C takes up a lot of kerning as well. So there's a lot, in Minus, there's a lot of shapes that take up a lot of kerning. They all require quite a bit of it. You can see how tight the E gets getting into this corner. So public Minus. Right? And then I feel like I need something here in this corner. So that might be where my initials go. This would be a fourth read. Right? Kind of a signature on the poster. Or the year, something like that. But I'm kind of liking that eye movement. What do you think? Okay. Now, just to show you why we do sketches, that's option 1. Let's try an option 2. Now, what will change it is that I can change where my spot illustration is. So I'm going to take my smart object of my spot illustration. I'm going to Command T it. I'm going to shrink it down. Maybe make it more central. I do like this slight tilt to it, though. And now option 2 for text blocking. I'll do it with a different color. Maybe I want it to be more like a t-shirt design, more kind of traditional, like an arc banner behind the spot illustration at the top, and then an arc banner underneath. Or maybe not even so much of a banner. Let's see. Maybe I'll keep it nice and angular. So here, public. Like it's rising out of the ground. And that's C taking up a lot of the kerning space. And the only danger is the B is going to read like an R a little bit, right? Because the bottom of it's covered. So I might have to design it where the holes in the B are up higher so that it's clear. And then Minus. This is why it's helpful to divide it out first. M-E-N-A-C-E. It's going to be very kind of heavy metal. Careful to always, with C's, always have them kind of end going up a little bit more than the bottom so they don't look like G's. Okay, and then this is option 2. Let's see how that works to disrupt the default eye movement. There is something in the middle, but it's on the spine, and that leads us up to here. This brings us across. That angles us down. We read back.